Hello, everybody, and welcome to Differential Discussions. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Dave.
And today we're going to be looking at toxic granulation. So we know this slide has toxic gran. We've yet to see Dolly bodies. So if we see Dolly bodies, we see them. But we'll at least find toxic granulation.
Sure. Yeah, toxic gran is something that would probably it does throw students for a loop initially when they see it.
Yep.
So yeah, that'll be fun to look at. And then, we got a neutrophil here. Does this one have toxic gran?
No.
Melissa? Nah.
No, he looks regular.
So like a lot of times we kind of assess it, I think it would vary from lab to lab, but it's kind of qualitative, right? The slide either is exhibiting some toxic gran or not. And even if it does have toxic gran to the point of being called, it may not be in every cell. So, so we have a normal neutrophil here.
And that's one of the characteristics of toxic granulation is that it's not in every neutrophil. So we should start by saying toxic granulation is found in neutrophils.
Right.
You can find it in bands, metas. Generally, those are the most common cells that have toxic granulation. And
so what if it was in every neutrophil?
Yeah, so every neutrophil, then you have to be concerned of if it's Alder-Riley syndrome instead of toxic granulation, where they have thicker granules, larger granules, but they cover all of the neutrophils on the slide. And that's why one of the characteristics of toxic gran is that usually not every neutrophil has toxic granulation in it.
Cool. Yeah. So Alder-Riley, an inherited, is that classified as a benign?
It's a issue with mucopolysaccharides, or kind of some of those sorts of granules. So it's a whole different issue that you generally find with other syndromes. So it's not going to be something that you just find usually on its own. Like toxic granulation is usually associated with stress on the bone marrow. So I don't mean stress when you're stressed out from work.
I'm always stressed out.
But like stress on your marrow, so stress on your body, right? So something like an infection, pregnancy, GCSF, any of those kinds of things can give toxic granulation.
Good point. GCSF, we definitely saw that a lot back in the day, right? So if people are at like an oncology clinic, we give this hormone to kind of promote, increase the neutrophil count, protect people with on chemotherapy and things like that. And yeah, you'll see toxic gran will just kind of pop up. Lots of immature granulocytes and things like that. Yeah. Cool.
So I guess we should just back up and say, what is toxic granulation?
Yeah, well, tell me. I don't know what it is. I know what it looks like.
Essentially, when your body knows that there's stress on the body, it usually assumes it's some kind of infection. So it gives the neutrophils a greater kill capacity by just enhancing the acidity of the already toxic granules that you have to kind of help with killing off anything that is infecting your body. So it gives it a greater kill capacity, lowers the pH, and the granules look a little bit larger. So they're not large like basophilic granules or eosinophilic granules, but they're larger than the pinpoint granules that neutrophils usually have.
The way I try to describe them is if you have like a marker and you let it bleed into the paper a bit, that's kind of the effect I think the toxic gran kind of gives visually.
Yep. Just kind of hair larger than the poke you would normally get with a marker.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good description.
Cool.
All right, so let's move around and see what we can find.
Little bit there. Yeah. So especially juxtaposed to the other fella, you could see these more prominent granules here. Yeah,
absolutely. You kind of see more the purple granules look a little bit larger than they did in the last normal guy that we were looking at.
Yep, bit darker.
They're still not on top of the nucleus though.
Yes, and that's an excellent point. So one of the things that we might be trying to contrast against here is the possible basophil. So if you get a basophil that's not heavily granulated, it could be quite easy for someone to make the mistake in thinking that the basophil was either toxic gran or that toxic gran neutrophil may be a basophil. So we'll see, maybe we get lucky and we come across one. When we were kind of scanning a little bit earlier, we saw one, but we'll see if we come across a baso for comparison. Awesome. And another one with some deeper, darker kind of granules to it.
Yep. So not a basophil, toxic granulation.
Not a bit, yes, toxic gran neutrophil, be more specific.
Ooh. See the giant platelet?
That's a chunk of a platelet.
Generally, the definition of a giant platelet is bigger than red cells.
Bigger than red cells, yes. And so a large platelet like that, would that be consistent with something that might cause toxic gran to show up? Like
it could be. Yeah, usually you can see giant platelets in stress on the marrow. Like, for example, sickle cell disease usually has giant platelets, things like that, where you do have, of course, stress on the marrow because you're trying to consistently pump out cells. So it could be also related to toxic granulation sort of stress.
Yeah, because I think I've seen before maybe a high-ish platelet count along with, and maybe you get this is quite large.
And it looks like there's a good number of platelets in this field.
Yeah, yes.
So absolutely. It could be elevated, and generally platelets could be elevated with inflammation, which usually elevates the white cell count and gives you toxic gran. So it could just be that this patient has some kind of severe inflammation and so stress on the marrow, and so they have increased platelets, giant platelets, and toxic gran.
So that's a happy find. That's a cool platelet to see.
He almost looks like he's becoming pycnotic.
I see that as well. So what Melissa's describing there, how deep and dark. I mean, we expect a mature neutrophil to have a dark nuclear chromatin pattern, but this is extremely condensed to the point of being a necrotic / pycnotic dead cell, dying cell.
Yeah. But he was toxic gran.
He was.
Okay. So I think this is a nice one because he does have a little bit of toxic granulation, but it's significantly lighter than some of the other toxically granulated neutrophils we've seen.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and like anything with biology like this, there's a spectrum of toxic gran. It can be really pronounced in some cells and then absent in others, and then kind of middling, like some of these cells here. They're a little bit darker.
Yeah, and this one you can see the toxic gran is more over here and less on the bottom of the cell.
Yep. Other things that I believe I've seen in my experience in a toxic gran, mono. But other things with neutrophils that we'll see from time to time with toxic gran is vaculated granulocytes. So you'll see neutrophils that have vacuoles. Not uncommon for that to be together.
Yep, some more toxic gran.
More toxic gran. And then typically toxic gran and Dole bodies kind of will be on the same slide, so to speak, but not always, as demonstrated here. That's a cool neutrophil.
Yeah, they're both pretty cool looking, and you can see that this one looks like it's more toxically granulated than this one, but this one still has some in there.
Yeah, definitely. Excuse me.
He's just a stretchy mono.
Stretchy monos. Beautiful.
Stretchy mono. Oops, wrong way. Put him back. It's another nice toxic
Yeah.
granule.
Definitely.
And I would still call that a neutrophil.
Mm-hmm. As opposed to a band, right? Is that what you mean to say? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
A lymph.
Our friend lymphocytes. I'll tell you, I feel like a resting lymphocyte nowadays. Getting round.
Ooh, that's a nice one.
That's very deep, rich color.
It's a really nice
And I'm looking at him with like a critical eye, to be honest. I'm looking for a bezo.
Yeah. Well, look at that one. This one's super toxic gran too.
Definitely. Yep, absolutely.
But just again, remembering that basophils have the granules on top of the nucleus.
Mm-hmm.
He looks normal.
Wow, yeah, there you go. So that's a great visualization of, because you can kind of, once you like look at enough toxic gran, it starts to bleed into what you think a neutrophil might supposed to look like, right? It's a good reset.
Yeah.
Mono in the corner.
Oh man, not out. Yeah, so we have a mono, and then 2 neutrophils. This one's definitely toxic granulation. This one looks like it's got some along here.
Yeah, but much less so.
This one has a vacuole right there.
Yeah.
And then I think.
What? Cool.
Found him.
So if you're paying like, this is awesome actually. So I would say normally when you look at a basophil's cytoplasm, it has like a certain pinkness, like coloration to the cytoplasm that's unique, kind of. But this neutrophil off to the side is kind of like telling me to mess off with that nonsense. So, but the granule size is going to be the key here for me to distinguish that this is a basophil. So on the bottom of that cell there, I don't have my annotation. Yeah, right. Yeah. You can see a couple of those big granules, and they're significantly larger than other granules in the same cytoplasm. And with a neutrophil, that's really not going to happen. So to me, that's like a big flag. And there's also a couple granules on top of the nucleus. Is that?
Yep.
And so that right there, it's game over. That's a basophil.
That's why I'm playing with the fine tune a little bit. Hopefully people can see the granules on top of the nucleus.
Yeah, I can see them. I'm always just like second guessing myself. It's very nice to have your eyes in the scope, and it's tough when you don't. But cool. Yeah, that is a basophil 100%.
Yeah, so this is a basophil and this is a toxically granulated neutrophil.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Dave said, the granules, remember the characteristic basophilic granules are that they're not of the same shape or size. So having small ones and large ones is characteristic of a basophil and not other cells. So it's not characteristic of a neutrophil, even with toxic granulation.
Yep. Cool.
I saw this lymph, this neutrophil over here, and I was like, oh, that baso's around.
Was that like a visual anchor earlier that you saw? Yeah.
So we'll go back over here. All right, and maybe we'll hit up another cell. Oh, we've got a whole little crew over here.
Yay! Got a mono in the middle.
Yep.
Mono in the middle. I like that alliteration. Here. And then we got a lymphocyte hanging out on the left. And then a normal neutrophil, it looks like to me.
He looks normal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then is
cool.
Toxic around? Right. As compared to, say, this.
Yeah. And you know, I kind of like this cell right here looks a little like battle tested to me, right?
He's
I don't want
in
to say
rough
like,
shape.
what's that?
He's in rough shape.
Yeah, a little bit, right? So yeah, you sort of pick up on that over time, like,
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think we didn't see any Dolly bodies, but we saw toxic gran, lots of toxic gran, and a bezo to compare.
Yep. And if we do come across Dolly bodies, we'll be sure to make another video for that, because we definitely want you to see that. But.
Yep. And for red cells, I didn't see anything exciting.
Nah, nothing really. No.
So I think the only thing we'd call is that toxic granulation is present.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's all for this video then. So thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you'd like notifications whenever we post a new video, and feel free to reach out to us on social media or via email with comments or suggestions about future content. Thanks.